Joining me to begin with to discuss this is Dr. Taj Hargey, Director of the Oxford Institute for British Islam and a prominent liberal Muslim. Taj, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I've been astonished by the way people have danced around this. I mean, let's be frank, and OK, we've not had the court case yet, but we can believe what the police say and we can see the evidence. This is somebody in your religion who clearly hates democracy and Western values. And my concern is, you know, that awful man that killed Joe Cox a few years ago, there may be a few people like him out there, but we know there aren't very many. My concern is how many people like this are there out there within the British Muslim community that have been radicalised, if I can ask you that question.
Yeah, I believe it's quite a few. But the point firstly I want to make is that myself and all thinking Muslims want to extend our condolences to Sir David's brutal killing, a horrific murder. As you say, it's not a passing away.
Can I just say, I was delighted to see that the mosques and the representatives of the Muslim faith in Essex and Southend were there within hours, weren't they?
Absolutely.
And I was delighted to see that.
I think that's important, but I think the big question here is, how do we in Britain nurture these people that become fanatic and intolerant? The answer is very clear. It's theology, theology, theology. Unless Muslims and non-Muslims understand what is populist Islam, what is orthodox Islam, we will never get to the root of the problem. I believe that we're going to have more and more of these jihadis and militants unless we deal with this. So there are three toxic elements to the theology of orthodox Islam. So what are these three? Give me some time if you may. Firstly, it's a toxic trio, it's a toxic triumvirate. So what's the first one that creates this type of a narrative? The first is the hadith, the supposed alleged sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, written 300 years after his death and has been invented, and this type of Chinese whispers. That's the hugest component of it, because that's where you get jihadi narratives. That's where you get the idea that if you kill someone, you'll have 72 virgins in the afterlife. It's not in the Quran. It's these alleged, reputed sayings of Muhammad. That's number one. Number two is the Sharia. And Sharia is not divine law. Sharia is medieval opinion masquerading as divine law. So these are the medieval theologians that came to understand Islam, and they projected that as God's law. It's not God's law. It is their opinions and their prejudices. So that's number two. And the third of the toxic trio is fatwas. The most egregious one, of course, we all know is Salman Rushdie's one. But fatwa is just an individual opinion of a one cleric. It is not, it has no Quranic justification. And so when we have an Islam that is projecting itself as authentic and original, it's not. It is the absolute juxtaposition of it. The Islam of the clergy, the Islam of populist Islam, populist faith, is a perversity of what Islam teaches. Quranic Islam, Taj, let me just finish here.
Taj, I believe every word that you've just said, and you've said it with great sincerity, and I can see that you believe this and you mean this. Isn't the problem here, though, that, you know, I mean, for example, the Catholic Church has a pope. You can like the pope, you can dislike the pope, you can see him as being too conservative, being too liberal, but the church has a head of the church, and he, for his period in office, gives the lead to that church. Isn't one of the problems with Islam that no such structure exists?
Well, that's both a benefit and a bane. And for example, when we have a pope and he's corrupt, like during the time of the Reformation and so forth, what do we do then?
But here's the problem. You're giving me your interpretation.
No.
And I fully accept. I fully accept. I fully accept that many of the things that people purport to be from the Quran are interpretations that came later. But without any head of the religion, it's very difficult. Does the religion need some sort of reformation?
Yes, in fact, I'm coming to that if you let me.
All right, okay. I will.
Okay, so the point is, the Quran warns Muslims not to make the mistakes of Jews and Christians. And what mistake did the Jews and Christians make? They put their rabbis and their monks and bishops and made them into little gods. So the Quran warns people, we do not want little gods, the clergy people. And so it says that the book is sufficient, the book is complete, it's detailed, nothing has been left out. 6,236 verses. When you add this, that's all the Quran is. When you add the so-called hadith and the sharia and the fatwas, it's over 2.4 million. And that's where the issue comes. Muslims have to have a rational faith, a faith that is reformist, and a faith that is relevant. We in Britain need an Islam that's the three E's. It has to be erudite, it has to be egalitarian, and it has to be enlightened. And that is what this Islam that we want to...
Who is going to lead that?
Well, firstly, any movement starts off small. I'm originally from South Africa. In 1958, when Sweden decided to boycott South Africa because of anti-apartheid, they were all sort of laughed at. And yet, 30 years later, the sanctions worked. So movements take a while. But right now, in fact, we have the wonderful thing called internet. The Muslim clergy no longer...
Well, internet can be good and bad.
Yeah, right, but at least it no longer has a monopoly of interpretation by the clergy. And so, for example, the way that we need to fix this problem that happened in South End and many other incidents is a three-pronged strategy. That's what I'm...
But to be frank, you're pessimistic in the short term.
Yes, but I'm not pessimistic. I'm actually hopeful that in the end we will come there. But let me talk about this three-pronged strategy.
Very briefly.
Okay. Firstly, we need to tackle the three M's. What are the three M's? It's the mosque, it's the mullahs, and the madrasas. The mosque, for example, over 50% of the mosques in this country are ultra-conservative, Deobandi, Tablighi, and so forth. How come that the most prestigious mosque in this country, the Regent's Park Mosque, is controlled by the Saudis? The director reports to the Saudi king.
But we've learned that this man was inspired by Anjam Chowdhury.
Yes, so the second M, mullahs. Now, Anjam Chowdhury is a type of mullah, right?
Yeah.
So these people need to be identified and targeted, and we need to go after the, so to speak, the Anjam Chowdhuries of the world. And they're easily to find. You have about 2,000, 3,000 mosques in this country. It's easy to do it. I could do it if I'm given the support for that. And the third M is the madrasas. The madrasas are children being indoctrinated and conditioned into a perverse type of Islam of them and us.
Well,
now, when we have them and us, how can we have security and safety in our society?
I'm going to say to you, Taj Hargey, thank you for coming on and making your arguments, but I think there's a lot of work to do within your religion to get this straight.
Absolutely.
But I thank you for what you've had to say, and I thank all of those people from the Islamic faith in Essex and from the mosques who turned up and paid homage